for you guys, what's been the hardest part of working with these athletes, and how can an athlete or someone that wants to produce a product for someone get people to care?
That's a great question. And my forearms, my legs, like my butt was cramping. I was just like, don't just try to work with them just because of the name. Don't just pay them an arm and a leg because you think that this is what it's going to take to get your brand to the next level. That's like my biggest pet peeve is when people are just like, use my code, use my code, use my code, use my code. Let's do something that makes a difference and not just use my code. This is the brand I work with. We were inside the Carhartt store, one of the Carhartt work in progress stores, one of the flagship stores in Düsseldorf. And one of the workers there recognized the hat and was like, Hyperfly. And we're like, yeah. And then
all right, everyone, welcome to another episode of Elbows Tight Podcast. Today I have another very special guest, a returning guest. Laurenz, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. I'm so happy to be here. Well, it's been like over a year, right?
I think it's probably been two, maybe definitely over a year.
2 years?
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah.
So
yeah, time flies.
A lot has changed since the last time we've chatted. You guys have been doing some great things. You recently got promoted to brown. Well, not recently, but you got promoted to brown belt since last time we chatted. How has that been going?
Yeah, kind of funny because our last conversation was the 8-year purple belt. Just keep showing up, keep training, ups and downs. I think since the last time we talked, a lot has happened, building up to getting my brown belt in July, which almost fell onto, I think, 8 or 9 year anniversary of being a purple belt. But yeah, I had some stuff in my personal life that happened. I went through a breakup, kind of needed a community, and I was looking around for, I should start a new hobby. I should do something. And then I was like, wait, I have jiu-jitsu. Like I should probably just start training. And I was just there every day, almost every day, like Monday to Friday, going on Saturdays, open mats here and there. My coworker, John Luke, and I just started signing up for a bunch of tournaments, training together, competing together, lifting together, just doing the whole like athlete thing. And, honestly, it was such a great journey to finally getting my brown belt. Cause I think just like my whole approach sort of changed. Like I was in a relationship, like I said, and I just made jiu-jitsu my full-time girlfriend, which was great. It was like one of the best things I ever could have done. Found like this awesome community. And ironically, I've been in like the industry or around jiu-jitsu for so long, and I've met so many people that have always told me, jiu-jitsu saved my life. Jiu-jitsu saved my life. Well, I've heard, you've heard it. Everybody said it, right? And I've always kind of understood what that meant. I'm like, I get it, but I've never like actually been in a position where like jiu-jitsu might have saved my life in a way, or my sanity. And it was a really beautiful journey to the brown belt. And yeah, still training. I actually recently took a little bit of a break because I was in Europe for a month, and prior to that, I hurt my back after competing in December. So I've been on a little bit of a pause. We're not taking a big pause, and we're hopping back in next week. But yeah,
that's awesome, man. Like being a purple belt for so long, what was that initial feeling when you realized that it was happening?
I don't think it was. I mean, so I had to test for the brown belt. Our school under Johnny Ferrer, we test, and it was like a 4-page test. It was 20 submissions from guard. Like all these combinations, go for a takedown with a pass to a submission, or a set up a submission, go for a different one. And I've always been a really bad, like I've never been good at tests, so it was really stressing me out. And that was like I think like a month out or so, they're like, hey, promotions are coming up, and you guys are up for your next belt. And so start studying the test. Here it is, take it home. And we came in a couple of times, to one of the side mats and drilled it a bunch of times. Came in, did the test on a Saturday, I believe. It took about 2 hours. There was a little written portion too, which caught me by surprise.
That's interesting.
A little bit. Yeah. And then it was just like it was very simple stuff. The written stuff was very simple. It's like stuff that you should know. Did the test, passed it, and then I think a week later or so we got our brown belts. But it was I want to say it was somewhat of a relief, and that I didn't think I needed, because I kind of gotten to the point where I was just very content with training. I was very content with being there, and I was kind of just like, I'm just here for the love of the game. I'm not here to prove anybody that I'm better than anybody else, or that I deserve this in any way. I just wanted to train. And so getting our brown belt, or I keep saying ours because John Luke and I, we both tested at the same time, and we've been purple belts forever. um, was just like, it was sort of a relief in a way, like that I was deserving of it. And I didn't want to, seem like the person who, like, I need to get my brown belt because I've been training for so long. But there's people out there that were telling us, like, you guys should probably get promoted. Um, and yeah, it was really awesome. Just like, yeah, it was just an 8-year journey of ups and downs, of not training under different professors, different schools, moving around a lot. Jiu-jitsu politics got in the way. Sometimes a little bit of work stuff got in the way. And so just really came full circle on it to finally be acknowledged
Yeah.
that the skill set was up to par with being a brown belt.
So was brown belt the only belt that you've tested for?
Yes, that was the only one.
What?
Yeah, yeah.
So I tested for my blue belt in a very similar situation, except for it was more of
Mm-hmm.
a, hey, show me, like, it was on the spot. They would call things out like, hey, show me 5 sweeps from guard, or show me 5
Right,
submissions from mount, or whatever, right? And
right.
I was always under the impression that everyone should test for a belt, because that was the one belt I've gotten in jiu-jitsu I tested for, right? And now that I've
Mm-hmm.
experienced and seen our new professor doesn't test, he just promotes you when he thinks you're ready. It's
Mm-hmm.
definitely, it's more like my perspective has shifted a little bit about testing. Like, I'm not 100% for testing anymore, because I feel like that's your professor's job to say, like, hey, I think you're ready for it. But I still do like testing, because it validates, like you just said, that feeling of, I just crushed this. Like, I know now, like,
Right.
there's less of that imposter syndrome when you get the belt. How do you feel not testing for belts and testing for belt? Which one do you kind of prefer now?
Um, I almost think that it depends on the school where you train at, the people that are training there. Are there high level competitors there? And what is your initial, like, goal or approach to jiu-jitsu? Like, what are you training for? I think if you're a hobbyist, if you're just coming in to get an exercise in and have a good time or build some confidence, I don't feel like you should necessarily have to get
Mm.
tested, because, like I said, I've never been good at tests, and I think it does create an immense amount of
Oh yeah.
pressure for some people, and especially if you're just trying to, you know, love jujitsu and be there and do something good for yourself. Maybe you're there with your kids and you all start at the same time. I don't. I feel like maybe like a test can kind of take the fun out of it. Um, but I think certainly when you get to a higher rank, like a brown belt or a black belt, I think that uh, a test is appropriate in a way, because I do think that when you get to that point, you might be sharing your knowledge with other people, right? You might be traveling. Like, I was in Korea last year in April, and I was training at a gym there, and they randomly just go, "Hey, do you want to teach a class?" And I'm like, I've never taught a class, and I've never even pulled anybody aside and been like, "Let me show you how to do
Yeah.
that."
You want a private?
Um, yeah. I'm not that guy, like, I design gis and I train because I love it. Um, but I think that, if like for someone like me who's traveling and who's training at different schools and stuff, I think like going through a test and kind of making you very credible is right, because it feels right, and it feels like you're kind of getting like this, like, um not approval, but you're kind of like getting the okay to be like sharing some of
Yeah,
your
like the
knowledge,
validation
like,
that you know it.
the validation, like, it's like, your stuff now, right? But if you're just like a hobbyist who's just coming in and you're training and you're surfing, and it's just like you're kind of like in that group, I don't think you got to get tested. I think that maybe like getting a Shark Tank done is awesome. Like I think there does has to be some sort of ritual or some sort of like path to it. I don't think just sit down and get promoted. I think there does have to be some sort of like initiation or ceremony involved, whether that's a Shark Tank, whether that's you know getting tossed around, or I don't know, like, or doing a test, doing a written test, doing like the 2 hour like technique test. I think really it has a time and place, and it depends on the school and the person. Johnny Furios, obviously a very credible instructor, a professor, and I think that getting your rank under him, I think it's very appropriate, because he has so many star students that are competing out there, and if you're going to be representing and flying his flag um, on and off the mats or at different academies, I think that you should have some sort of credibility, which I think a test gives you that feeling.
Yeah, and then right after you got your brown belt, you competed and did pretty well too, right? After your recent competitions.
Yeah, I did a yeah we did a I say we again, but I competed right after the brown belt Jiu-Jitsu World League at middleweight, which was super fun. Yeah, I did great. I got first. Um, I think 2 rounds, both submissions, and then I competed again in December, and I just cut too much weight, and it was it was during the holiday season. Our holiday party was a week out from it. We threw a giant party here at the office. It was super fun, and I just wasn't gonna miss out on that. So I had a couple drinks, and I ate all the snacks and all the food. And so 2 days out from the comp, I was like 6-7 pounds over, and I sweat it all out like the night before. Showed up at the comp feeling really good, shook hands, and then got my first grip and cramped up like immediately. Yeah, it was tough. I won the first match. I made it out there alive, and then lost my second. But I've also decided I'm not going to cut weight anymore. I'm going to compete at 195 because I'm like more the hobbyist jiu-jitsu practitioner. Like my full-time job is working here at Hyperfly, designing gis and everything else you need for training, and working with our athletes and all that stuff. And I just don't have the time. I think if I structured it a little bit better, I could lean into like the athlete, the like professional athlete, or like the comp athlete, because I definitely have like the network of people to train with, and I have the means. But it's just like I love jiu-jitsu and I love competing, and I don't want to be cutting weight, and I don't want to be putting myself through that stuff anymore. And I'm a big boy, like I'm pretty heavy. And
what's your weight?
Cutting that, I'm like 190.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'm a little bit heavier than you.
Yeah,
yeah, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, and so I'd rather compete at 195 and do the whole creatine thing and all that stuff,
Right.
Yeah. So I'm excited to compete hopefully in April, and then we've been just doing these Jiu-Jitsu World League ones because they're so fun.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely would like to start doing some of the IBJJF competitions, and if everything goes right, maybe even do Worlds, because who knows when I get my black belt, but when I do, I don't think I'll be able to do the whole tournaments, like collecting the points and all that stuff. So this or next year is probably my last shot at doing Worlds at brown belt as an adult, and not doing masters.
Real quick, this episode is brought to you by our Patreon and YouTube members. Thank you guys so much for committing $5 a month for exclusive and early content, and you get priority Q&A, and you will get secret live streams. And also you have the opportunity to get your roles reviewed by myself and a past guest or one of my high-level friends that can tell you what you're doing wrong, what your goals are, and where you should be focusing. Also, you are directly supporting the podcast and allowing me to keep improving and keeping my editor Dan. So thank you guys so much to my patrons and to the YouTube memberships. If you guys want to join for $5 a month, link is down below. Thank you so much. Back to the show. Peace. You started cramping during your last competition. What was going through your mind? Because that was one thing that I really tried hard to make sure it didn't happen when I competed my one time. It was like I cut weight also, but I only cut like a
Yeah.
two, maybe 2 or 3 pounds, but it was enough to where it like stressed me out and caused me to my body to just not perform whatsoever after my first match. And I remember thinking during it, like, dude, there's freaking no way that I'm ever even cutting the slightest amount of weight again. Like, I'll just move up in the weight class. What was going through your mind
Yeah.
the second you grabbed it and you're like, dude, what the hell is going on?
I it was like we did a couple grip exchanges, got on the ground, and I just felt like I had zero energy.
Yeah.
Like everything, I was completely depleted, and I have a good gas tank too. Like I'm very active. I run a lot. Like it just felt like I was being cheated by my own body. Like I did so much hard work, right, to get to this point, and it was all for nothing almost because I just did not have what it took at all to to continue another match. And my forearms, my legs, like my butt was cramping. I was just like, and I was hydrated the next morning. Like I cut that weight, had a little bit of electrolytes in that evening, woke up about 4 pounds under, feeling great. And at the end of the day, I didn't pee until like four o'clock. I
Oh,
competed at
wow.
10, and like that's how dehydrated I was. And I think it's just a rookie mistake. I just did it wrong. Too long in the sauna. I did two 15-minute sauna sessions with a cold shower between, which I also don't even think it was that long. But I sweat out the weight for sure. And it was in that moment pretty much that I was like, I'm not cutting this weight again because I'd rather come in feeling
Yeah.
great, having a bowl of pasta the evening before and fighting some bigger boys. I have no problem with that. I always pick the biggest person on the mat anyways to train with. And my jiu-jitsu is very like very hands-on, like a very
Mm-hmm.
physical. So I'd rather fight some bigger boys than cutting that weight again. It's just not enjoyable. And obviously I could do it better, right? Like I could have not had a holiday party a week prior to that and all that. But at the same time, like I've been lifting a lot more. I've been supplementing with creatine because I know it's just when you're this active, it's great for you. And all these little things that I'm doing that I just not doing that
Yeah.
again.
What was like the biggest difference from the times that you competed at purple versus the times you competed at brown? Like did you notice like a huge skill difference, or was there anything that was surprising during your time the two times competing?
Um, that's the thing. I don't know if there necessarily is a difference in the competitors. I think it's just that in a way I was intentionally sandbagging the purple belt division.
Mm,
And I think that obviously if I would have gone to like an IBGF tournament or like something else, like it would have probably been a different result. But given that I'm like sort of the hobbyist competitor, I just had no place being in the purple belt division anymore. I think that's just kind of like, to put it
yeah.
short, it was just time to fight at a different skill level, compete at a different skill
So you
level.
don't like when you see someone that's
Um,
won worlds multiple times at a belt level? You know what I mean? And then you're like, come on, bro.
yeah, right. I love the multiple world time champion, and it's like blue belt, purple belt, and like they're a black belt now, but they're putting multiple time world champion in it, and I'm just like, that doesn't count. Like you should, like it. And obviously it does count. Like there is so much
Yeah.
credibility in that because like if you look at the competition scene like 10 years ago to what it's now, I mean we see it everywhere, right? Skill level is just through the roof because you're. I think we're in an interesting time where you're seeing athletes come into the sport, into grappling, that would have maybe out of high school gone to college and played baseball, football, some sort of other professional sport where there's a lot of money to be made in. Um, and now you're seeing these like freak of nature's athletes that are coming into like grappling, right? Especially the Nogi division, like the Nogi section of the sport. You have so much incredible talent that you would, I think we wouldn't have seen 10 years ago, because the sport just wasn't as popular. It wasn't as what it is now. Like, you can make some serious
Yeah.
cash if you're competing at the highest level. And my point is, like, you have maybe somebody who enters, is an incredible athlete, is picking up technique really, really fast, and is competing as a blue belt or as a purple belt at the highest level, doing these super fights, right? So it's like the ranking system in Nogi, I don't think it really applies nowadays anymore. Because I mean, like, look at the B team and all those guys over there. Um, you have people in there that I don't even know if they're black belts or even brown belts, and they're doing ADCC trials and winning and all that stuff.
Yeah, prime
So
example, Nicky Rod.
it's
He
is
he
it
wa- he was like a got his purple belt after he got like what, second at ADCC. He got promoted to purple belt.
yeah,
Like, what?
yeah. And it's really cool. It's like, I think we're hitting one of the most interesting times in our sport, because you had all the, right, like, gi ruled the sport for so long, and you had all these world championships at the pyramid that are so legendary battles, like all these incredible uh, jiu-jitsu purists that were going through the ranks, moving up through the ranks, having their battles in there. And now, ADCC sold out T-Mobile Arena. I think
Crazy.
it's sold
Yeah.
out. I mean, yeah. And it's just like a huge shift in the sport of talent and of entertainment as well, right? Like, Flo is doing an incredible job doing all these little shows, highlighting all these different athletes. Podcasts like yours and all these other podcasts. Like, it's just like we're living in the era of content and of just like, I want to like freak of nature athletes, like athletes that had no game being in this sport a couple of years ago, because there was no money to
Hmm.
be made. And now that you have publicity, you have money, you have a stage for these athletes to perform on. You're seeing really, really incredible athletes rising through the ranks and making a name for themselves. And I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm excited to see what happens over the next couple of years. Like, what's the next step after this ADCC? Because it's going to be the biggest ever, right? Long Beach was huge when it was. Oh, and Anaheim, that one
Yeah.
was huge a couple of years ago. Then the last one in Vegas was massive, and this one, I don't even know where is it going to go after
Yeah.
this.
Well, this is kind of great segue into one of the topics that we were talking about. We want to discuss is kind of like branding and then working with athletes and whatnot. But I would love to get your perspective as, how is Hyperfly looking to take advantage of, jiu-jitsu exploding, and then how there's so much more publicity and there's more eyes on it now. Like you just mentioned, ADCC is like just blowing up beyond proportion. Like, it's just incredible how many people show up for ADCC last year. Like, what do you guys look at as a business in the space that you want to do to kind of capitalize on that?
Yeah,
If it doesn't
like I
involve an
mentioned, I
NDA,
think.
let me throw that out.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me of that. I mean, personally, on the business standpoint, on like how we're running shop here, um, we've had like internal discussions over the last year that we're increasing our Nogi output by a lot. And I think we've always kind of been a gi brand in a sense of the way. Obviously, we have some of the best Nogi um, product in the market. I think our Procom Supreme rash guards was just like 12 laser cut panels with a seamless neck. It feels like it. I have the first one we made over 10 years ago, and I still train in it. It hasn't
Mm,
fallen apart, and the seam has come undone. That rash guard is incredible, and we take a lot of pride in it. But there's been a lot of Nogi brands that are popping up left and right, and kind of really capitalizing on this explosion that's happening in the sport. And it excites me because I think that it's taking jiu-jitsu as a whole it's taking it further from the gi. Kind of like has its problems with it because a lot of people don't love it, right? Like it's like too much, it's too hot, it's they don't, you know, it hurts their hands or whatever. But it also it's like very traditional, and a lot of people, I think that's what kind of shied a lot of people away, is from this like traditional martial arts look, right? And now that you're having nogi, and you have gyms that you can go to where you just wear a rash guard and a t-shirt or shorts, and you can come from any sport, right? You can come from rugby, you can come from wrestling, you can come from powerlifting, like anything, you can get in on it. And it's a very easy way to get into something new, where the gi can kind of be a little scary for people. I'll always love the gi. My heart will always be with the gi. I will always prefer the gi over anything else. I even did a nogi camp in Thailand with Craig Jones and a bunch of those guys, and that was great. But I was like, just get me back in the gi. I I have fun. I rode with Brianna St. Marie today, at our office, and we did some nogi rounds, and it's fun. But I love the gi. I love the setups out of it. I love the grips. I love the game in the gi. But I think nogi overall is kind of what the sport needed to uh, have like uh, a new, like, fresh wind, right? Like, I
Agreed. Yeah.
think that Worlds for a long time was IBJJF Worlds was slowing down. There was a lot of, like, it was just, I don't want to say boring in any way, but it was just like people were staying at home watching it. Nobody was showing up anymore. And I think the Nogi with Joe Rogan and all those guys that talk about it, it got a lot of more people into the sport and also wanting to try the gi. But I think the gi itself just wasn't cutting it anymore for people to try jiu-jitsu. Even with like the popularity in Hollywood and these guys training, but they train like sambo basically, right? They wear gi jackets and they wear shorts. Um, but I think nogi is kind of saving jiu-jitsu as a whole, and is putting us onto another platform.
What do you think needs to
More
happen?
eyes, more
Sorry, go
people.
on. I
No,
was gonna
no,
say,
go
what do you
for it.
think needs to happen for the gi to regain popularity? Do you think it's a rule set thing? Do you think it's just major organizations like maybe ADCC putting it on a platform? Like, what do you think needs to happen for the gi? Because I still think gi is, primary way most people train jujitsu, but it's not the primary way
Hmm.
most people watch jujitsu. You know what I mean? So I think
Right.
I don't know what gi jiu-jitsu needs to do to start gaining that popularity again.
Um, I think the IBJF recently has been doing a good job on putting on these Grand Prix, which are exciting to watch. And there's a lot of talent, like a lot of hybrid athletes, right? They're training gi and
Mm-hmm.
nogi. It's pretty stacked. And I think there's a lot of athletes, a lot of young athletes. I mean, if you look at the roster of like world champions right now, I want to say like, oh, most of them are like in their mid 20s, if you
Mm-hmm.
you know. And I think that we just had sort of like this shift from like the gatekeepers that were the world champions that were out there that were competing. I think some of them retired, some of them started their own schools, some of them have their prodigies competing. And I think these prodigies are doing both, which is helping the gi to stay alive and to look good. But I know Flow is doing a great job. I know the IBGF is doing a much better job at making it appealing and putting on these events. I don't think the gi will ever go
Yeah.
away, and I think that for every three people that join like a nogi school of some sort, like some one of those will for sure want to train in the gi. I think the gi is more family friendly. I think the gi is more fun for
Yeah.
kids. I think it's safer. I think there's a whole list of like why I think the gi is better in a way, just personally. But I think nogi for the entertainment factor is where the sport is definitely heading.
Yeah, and having athletes like Nicholas Marigali, who's incredible in both, also helps out too because he's a big name in no gi right now. And when he trains in gi, he brings
Yeah.
that crowd also because he's exciting. He's going to do
Right.
something. And I think to like kind of like
Yeah.
Gordon Ryan's point, like if you want to make that money in jiu-jitsu, if you want to be a big name in jiu-jitsu, you need to back it up. You need to have a personality. You need to have a performance. You need to
Yeah.
be bigger than life, both good and bad, right? To really bring that back to it. And I think if more athletes were like Nicholas Marigali, where they were great at both, I think the gi would would start rising again. You know what I mean? But as someone that trains primarily gi, it's hard to watch. It's really hard to watch sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think it's because of these hybrid athletes that are competing in both and showing that you can do both. Because I asked Brianna earlier, gi or no gi, and she's like both. You got to do both. Like if you want to be the best, I think you got to do
Mm-hmm.
both. And I asked her because she started. This is crazy. Her journey, her no gi journey, is incredible. So she started training in 2016, and she got into no gi during COVID,
Wow.
because she was eager to compete. She was always game to put herself out there and compete. And so she did combat jiu-jitsu, combat worlds. And I even asked her, so you thought that was like the best first option as a first nogi event? And she actually came in as a jiu-jitsu purist. And she said, if I recall this right, she didn't throw a single strike her first
Wow.
combat jiu-jitsu run. Yeah. And then her second time, that's when she was getting hit, and she was like, "Oh my god, I can actually hit back."
It's a shock the first time. Like,
But
oh, that's right. This is a thing.
yeah, but talking about hybrid athletes, but like she does very well in the gi, but she entered nogi on a whim, and then from there, uh, she just went on she just went on a complete rampage of the nogi scene. Right, did so many tournaments, so many super fights, all the way leading up to ADCC in 2022, and only to come in second with Fiona, and to kind of like have this very short period of like 2020 COVID to 2022 is the biggest stage in the world to come in second. To only pick up nogi because she wanted to compete, and that was kind of the only thing that was out there, and then doing a combat fight as well. I'm just in awe. Like I'm the biggest fan of her, and her approach to the game, and how she's just like she's having fun. She's training both. She even said she might be doing worlds depending on how her match goes next week. Um, but it's just like I think that we need more of those athletes. I think that's what's going to keep the gi alive, is having people like Brianna St. Marie and having people like Muragali that are going to be going back and forth in camps doing gi and no gi, because it shows that the gi can be
Yeah.
exciting, right? When Muragali fights in the gi, it is exciting, and I think we just need more of that.
Yeah. So when you look to work with athletes, we kind of talked about this before press and record, but when you look to work with athletes, what are some of the attributes that you guys look for? Like, say if someone's just starting to compete, they want to take it full time, and they're looking for, they're like, oh man, maybe I should try hitting up Hyperfly to see if I can get sponsored as an athlete under them. Like, what are some attributes that you guys look for to ensure that it's a good collaboration between you and the athlete?
Yeah. So aside from obviously having a chat and being a fit, right? Like usually you can figure it out pretty quickly when you're talking to a new athlete if you're compatible with
Yeah.
each other, and that's in that first conversation you can sort of kind of like feel out a lot. Um, and I think that goes with like everything in life. You meet somebody and you have a good chat, like it's like there can be something here. But we do I think live in an interesting time of the athlete to the professor to the content creators. I think, right, like how like in the past how it go, is like you right, you're competing, you either do really well and you can go all the way, or you're not doing too well and you're investing a lot more time into this competitor and it's not really paying off. So you go the route of opening up a school and becoming a professor and sharing your knowledge and all that stuff. And those were kind of like always the two ways that I think your jiu-jitsu career would go if jiu-jitsu is the sole thing that you're doing. But now that we live in this content world where content is king, um, there's some really interesting, very knowledgeable athletes out there, that bring a lot to the table. Right, I think it's never been easier to work with an athlete on social media, with the collaboration posts,
Yeah.
like with getting their insights, getting their input on product, on content, on on ways to engage with both of your followers. I think I love creating content these days. We're doing a lot of it. It's super fun. Um, but those are like there, those are a few things that we're looking at is in which category do you fall? What is it that you bring to the table? Are you an active competitor? How often do you compete? Is that who you are going to be in our books? You're going to be a competitor. So like you kind of have to meet those certain criteria. If you work with a competitor and let's say they compete once every 4 months, but they want to have a salary or they want to have free gear, nowadays I think it's getting tough because like there's more you have to bring to the table. So if you're a competitor, make sure you're actively competing, right? Make sure that you're repping the brand, make sure that you're out there, um, you know, representing the brand well. It's not all about winning. It's not all about being on the podium at all times. It's not about talking shit necessarily. It's just like we like because like the whole talking shit is also like a huge sales factor nowadays, right? Like do you want to do the Conor McGregor or the Marigali, right? Marigali pulls it off extremely well because he can
Right.
back it up. But if you're just out there talking smack and you're not, and you can't, we have no problem with what type of person you want to be out there. Um, but as long as you can back it up, then that's okay. But yeah, if you're going to be an athlete, if you're going to be a competitor, then make sure you're competing, and that's sort of that thing. If you're going to be an instructor, if you're a professor, we're looking to work with your academy. We're looking to make custom gear with you, collaborate with you, get you students, in Hyperfy if possible, but also kind of work with your community and see what is it that we can provide for you, for your community, for your students, for your people. And it's a give and take. And that's, I think, what a lot of people forget about is like you come on as an individual and you think you're the
Yeah.
shit, and you might have done really well, or you have a really big affiliation, and so it's kind of like take because look what I have to offer. But at the same time, like we have a lot to offer as well, and we're willing to offer everything we have and all of our resources and all our networks and all of our tools and everything we do nowadays. We're willing to offer that to everybody we work with, as long as you're working with us and not just we're working for
Yeah.
you, because the working for you just doesn't work at all.
Yeah.
And it always, at the end of the day, that's usually where some sort of relationship will fail. And we have a lot of great relationships with our athletes, and we have a lot of athletes we've been working with for decades, right? Or for a decade, I guess. Um, but if it fails, it's usually some sort of like you're not doing your part of the deal, or we are not able to do our part of the deal because the chemistry is not there. Um, but look, we're a fun brand. We like to have fun. We like to be creative. We like to work together as much as possible and create something that can have an impact in whatever shape or form that might look like. We're game. If you have an idea, come to us. Let's make it happen. We've made rash guards for athletes, right? We do walkout shirts for athletes. We create content, videos. We're sending our videographer all over the world now to go to your school, to go to your gym, to follow you around, highlight you as tell your story of this. Tell. That's a huge thing for us now, is storytelling. And like we want to tell your side of the story. We don't want to just like put you in a t-shirt and post a picture and
Use code.
and kind of have that. Yeah, exactly. That's like my biggest pet peeve is when people are just like, use my code, use my code, use my code, use my code. Let's do something that has an impact. Let's do something that makes a difference, and not just use my code. This is the brand I work with. I get free gear, or I get discounted gear, or they pay me a salary, and this is what I have to do, and this is what it's going to look like. We really want to create narratives. We want to create storytelling, because storytelling is so fun, and I think it's kind of what sets you apart from the norm nowadays. Is like people. I think that the world we live in, everything got so automated and everything got so like with the click of the button you can do anything nowadays. And I think to kind of set yourself apart from that, you have to tell the story. You have to go a little bit deeper than just the surface. And we've done some great work with some of our athletes, flying over there, shooting them. Like Solange is one of my dear friends and a great athlete out of Marcelo's, and she has an incredible story of how she got into jiu-jitsu. And she was a model basically from like 16 onwards, 17 onwards, being a model. And she just had kind of love-hate relationship with being a model for the longest time, because it's a very cruel business. It can be very, strenuous and tough. And when she found jiu-jitsu, she felt like jiu-jitsu was the first thing that loved her back, like fully,
Yeah.
like she felt in tune with it. She felt like she has a real purpose in here, like not taking away from anything from what she's done in her modeling career, because she's done massive jobs and incredible things, but she just kind of just felt right. And that's the story we wanted to tell. That's, because so many people can relate to that find jiu-jitsu and they just love it so much, and they can't quite pinpoint it, what it is that they love about it. And then maybe they hear Solange's story and they get inspired by it, right? It keeps them motivated. Maybe that's something that they need. And we don't necessarily even try to sell a product doing these videos. It's that we want to, maybe it is the spark that you are looking for while you're out there, whether you're training or not, and you're just kind of unsure of where you're going and where you're heading. Are you going to be competing? Are you just training to train? Like, what is it? Like, where how do you find your purpose in the sport? And being able to tell these incredible stories with all these amazing individuals that we work with, we hope that it just kind of can be the spark that you're looking for.
Yeah. I mentioned to you that, one of the questions that I got asked about, building the brand of Elbows Tight, the podcast of Elbows Tight and whatnot, from someone was like, what was the biggest hurdle, during my time of doing this? Because I've been doing this now for 5 years, and I've found relative success and whatnot. And I told them straight up, it's like, it's getting people to care. People, there's a million podcasts out there. There's a million jiu-jitsu brands out there. There's a million jiu-jitsu athletes out there. It's like getting someone to care about me and what I have to offer was like the hardest part of building all of this. And I still nowhere near where I want it to be. Obviously, I don't think anyone is ever where exactly they want to be. But it was an eye opener when, a piece of content hit someone and they would message me. They're like, dude, thank you so much for making that. Like, that's amazing. I needed to hear this, and I feel like you have to be, to your point, you can't be superficial. You can't just put out there like, hey, listen to my podcast. Like, no one's going to listen to your podcast.
Right.
No one's going to buy your gear. No one's going to do anything. You have to give them a reason why it's valuable to them. For you guys, what's been the hardest part of, working with these athletes, and you're like, hey man, like, it's not working, but we'll give it another shot? Or like, how can an athlete or someone that wants to produce a product for someone get people to care?
It's a great question. And I think it goes into storytelling and relationships. And maybe because there has been athletes, which I'm not, obviously I can't name anybody, but there's been athletes that we've talked to that are probably some of the biggest in the sport as of right now. And the chemistry just wasn't there. We're a family-owned business. Everything we do, everything we put out there kind of has like a purpose, kind of has, it has our DNA in it. And maybe if, let's say, you are a jiu-jitsu brand and you're starting out and you get connected to one of the bigger athletes, don't just try to work with them just because of the name, right? Don't just pay them an arm and a leg because you think that this is what it's going to take, to get your brand to the next level. Because if the chemistry is not there with them, then the whole project, the whole product, the whole storytelling is not going to be there. It's not going to work out. And it might work out for a short period, but then in the long run, it won't. And you're investing time, you're investing money, you're investing brand identity, right? Like the way we look at it is like every time we work with an athlete, when we bring them on board, we're directly connecting like our DNA and our purpose and what we're trying to do to that individual. And if that individual doesn't reflect what you're trying to bring across, or the brand that you believe in, it will change what you're trying to do. And I don't think I don't think any athlete is worth the sacrifice of your own hard work. I don't think that there's any individual out there that is worth slaying yourself over, working hard just to make that payment to them monthly, and they're not really reflecting, they're not really showing up for you, showing up for the brand. I don't think there's anybody out there that's worth it. That's just my opinion. That's our opinion. And obviously we've been in, the brand has been around for a long time, and we've encountered a lot of different individuals. And this sort of like census, this sort of like approach to it is something like that was a very tough pill to swallow in a way, because you want to sometimes work with these like incredible individuals, or and to just realize that it just might not be worth it when you want to do it, because the temptation is there, is something you just have to learn. And it's just like a piece of advice that I can just only give to anybody, that when you're gonna work with somebody, make sure that it's gonna make sense. Make sure that it's gonna reflect your own wants and desires of slaying away and building a brand, or building an academy, or whatever it is. Like, it's got to make sense. If it doesn't make sense, if it doesn't feel right in your gut, don't even do it.
Yeah.
Because from one day to the next, it's going to fall apart, and then all this hard work you did is down the drain. And I mean, it might sound harsh in a way, but that's just sort of my take on that, or my opinion.
No, and I think it's smart too, because I listen to a lot of like content creator stuff, and I was mentioned the duo that I listen to probably the most is Colin and Samir over on YouTube, and they're like big in like the creator economy. And recently, a big YouTuber, MKHB, Marcus Brownlee, he became an advisor on Ridge Wallet, right, which is a big deal because he's just an incredible content creator. And one thing that they talked about was like it's a big deal for both of them because it's a mutual respect, it's a mutual collaboration. But then they brought up a good point of Manscaped signing Pete Davidson. It was like this whole big announcement, like, we brought on Pete Davidson, and no one's heard anything else about it, right? So they paid him all this money, and most people forgot that he was brought on. You know what I mean? And it's like, what was a bigger impact? It's like probably someone that has a community, has people that listen to them, has good storytelling, has a way to connect with people and connect with the brand, rather than one big name athlete or one big name movie star or whatever that doesn't do anything for either part of the collaboration. Right. You know what I mean? And so I think it's super interesting when people think that they have to have all these followers, they have to be this gigantic name in the scene or anything like that. When it's not true. I've got to work with some incredibly large brands. Like, I worked with Manscaped for 2.5 years, and it was a great collaboration because there was my community supported me through them, and which in turn was great for both of us. So for people out there, you don't have to be huge in the scene. You don't have to be the biggest name in the world to work with some amazing brands. I don't know about Hyperfly, but no, but
you're right, and I think putting sort of all your eggs in one basket too is going to burn you at the end. And like, the Pete Davidson is probably a great example. I'm sure that wasn't cheap, right? And now you haven't heard anything from it. And it's just like spending your money wisely, investing your money wisely, and making sure that there's that mutual respect. That there is that common understanding of what you want to build and what they want to build. And if you can align those two things, then it's going to be a hell lot more fun and more creative and so much easier building an incredible relationship and maybe doing a run from blue to black. I think that's, at least in my opinion, that's like one of our dreams always, and we've done it multiple times now, but that's always one of the paths that we want to take is find young talent and work with them all the way to black. Because I think that's one of the most beautiful commitments you can have in a brand athlete relationship is being there from the start. It's being there from when they're sort of no one to when they're rising through the ranks. Um, and it goes back into like that goes back into storytelling as well and all that stuff. But yeah, just think about it more than just once. Don't jump the gun. You know, talk to your community about it. Like see what they think. Like the Manscaped stuff, right? Like see what they think. Like how and yeah. I mean, I could go on and on and on about that stuff.
But so how does it
But
how
yeah,
does it when you like we talked about this a little bit too. You know, you guys have worked with some incredible collaborations. The NBA, right? You guys did a whole big thing with the NBA, different animes like Naruto and stuff like that. How do those transpire? Like, how does that even come into fruition? Like, how do you guys know as a brand to know to go to these companies and try to work with them?
yeah. Um, where do I start with all that stuff? I think at the beginning it was a lot of knocking on doors. The Carhartt one was actually kind of funny because we were on a family vacation, or we were back home in Germany, and we were inside the Carhartt store, one of the Carhartt work in progress stores, one of the flagship stores in Düsseldorf. And I think my dad or my mom were wearing a "You Can't Teach Heart" hat, and one of the workers there recognized the hat and was like, "Hyperfly." And we're like, "Yeah." And then one thing led to another, and we got connected to somebody higher up in the brand, and we started chit chatting and had the idea of using the original duck canvas to make geese out of it, and then that's how that happened, right? So it was like almost very
Yeah.
organic, like very natural. Um, there's been a few others, like the champion one. We had a good friend in the industry. The Jordan one that we did when we did the self defense seminars on the rooftop of the flagship store in LA. We did this like 2 day self defense seminars with like for women and kids, and that was something that we just got connected with someone as well again. But then the first anime collaborations we did, I think Naruto was the first one we did, and that was we went to a licensing convention, and we got a meeting in with the Viz Media, and just got a meeting in, pitched the idea of making a nogi collection, or I mean a grappling collection, and kind of connected all the like the references of like martial arts and honor codex and all that stuff, and they loved it, and then that's how that happened. It was just like that. Those license deals are a big commitment because there is a minimum guarantee, right? And you pay a percentage of that before you can even
Oh
touch
wow.
any of the assets, right? So you're investing a lot of money before you can even make any money on it. And it's kind of like a daring process because you commit to it for like a year or two or three. And once we did Naruto, all the other ones kind of just like fell into
Yeah.
place. And once you get your foot into the door with these license deals, there's other properties that they offer you or that you can request, or you can pitch them an idea for it. And so we kind of just worked ourselves through the ranks of doing all of these different anime collaborations. Godzilla was really amazing, probably one
Yeah,
of
that
the
one was
bigger
cool.
ones
I
we've
really
done.
like that stuff, dude. That was dope.
Yeah, and we're still going to do more Godzilla. We have another Naruto collection coming out in a couple weeks. We're doing two more gis there, um, and then there's other fun ones that are on the horizon. And one of them, after doing Naruto, Jujutsu Kaisen, and Godzilla, I personally was just so burnt out on doing any anime licensing. I was like, I'm done. After these run out, we're done with it. Like, let's do other stuff. Let's work with different brands, different industry. Like, just switch it up. But then this crown jewel, that what I call it, the holy grail of anime licensing, presented itself in the distance, and we sort of worked towards it, had the meetings we had to have, talked to the right people, and now it's like right there. And when it's another big commitment, in terms of like the time that we're going to spend on it. But it's my favorite anime, hands down. That's what got me into anime overall, and I'm very excited to do this one because I know it like the back of my hand, and I already have like the entire year mapped out for it. Um, and that's about as much as I can say for that.
I'm excited for you guys to see this. I know what it is because we talked about it already, but I'm excited for everyone else to see this. It's gonna be dope.
Yeah, I gotta be careful I don't slip up here. But anybody, and I think anybody that follows me kind of knows exactly what I'm talking about because I've teased it on my story and stuff. Like not even anything that we created, but just like I mean, there's so much of it out there. But that's sort of like the last one in terms of like anime that I want to do, and then after that, just focus on other stuff. Like like I said, we're doing a lot more nogi, and we really want to focus on building out the nogi stuff even more. Like we already make some of the best gear in the game, but there's some exciting new ideas we have for different rash guards and different shorts and very technical pieces. I would say that we're one of the more technical brands in the game. Our stuff is highly engineered. We spend a lot of time on it, a lot of product testing, using different fabrics and methods of like building out products. And I'm excited to kind of just like get into that more, because the anime really has taken us a little bit away from the focus of building out some of this other stuff. But even on the gi side, like we have some really exciting gis coming out. Like there's a Procom GT that we just used as the base model for the reorg gi that we just dropped. But that gi, I've been like dreaming about that piece for like over a year now, and I've always like had this idea of like the Judo Fly is our heaviest gi. It's a 750 GSM. It's like it's a judo gi basically, and that's my favorite gi. It's hard to grip. It's easy to break grips.
Thick with 2 C's.
It's yeah, 3 actually. It's a nightmare for anybody that if you're standing across from somebody in a judo fly, you're gonna have a tough time. And that's kind of like us trying to give athletes like sort of the slight advantage being on the mat. And the IBGF has really restricted that a lot. I remember we were the first brand to include the 4-inch and then 7-inch layer of like twill or canvas inside the sleeve. And Keenan wore that at the 2017 or 18 Worlds.
That's when he won, right?
He wore the judo fight.
Oh.
No, Keenan has never won Worlds, and he lost a very controversial finals match against Patrick Gaudio, and I went on a tangent on my Instagram story after that, driving home in the U-Haul with all our stuff, just so upset because I had definitely my take on, I think he won, and it was one of those, I don't want to get into that, but I was upset. But anyways, he wore this Judo Fly X-Ski that had that extra sleeve, the extra layer, which made it so much easier even to break a grip. So it was really the toughest gi to grip. It had an extra layer all along the collar and the inside, everywhere, and all the stress points, any of the grip points, we reinforced those with extra layers. And I think that was only good for about 6 months until the IBGF banned that. But we've always tried to give athletes like sort of the advantage in a way of like, and when it comes to engineering these gis. And the IBGF has recently rolled out a new rule set, which has taken, in my opinion, some of the fun away, because I love designing gis and I love doing little details. And it's kind of taken out the fun of like standing out like in like a unique way, right? Like our twill or our layers are this much taller. It's 5.5 instead of now it has to be 2.5. All this little stuff, like label placement, all that stuff. But I've been dreaming about making this pro comp gi, which is like a very slim cut, tailored competition gi that we do, but using the Judo Fly weave, which was a 750, now it's a 650 because of the IBJJF rule set. But instead of the side paneling on the judo flies, it's like a judo skirt, but the pro comp cut goes down like this in the front. So all of this now is a judo skirt on the side, which is like, it feels really padded. It looks really nice. But it kind of gives you this like tailored, extremely tough to grip comp gi. And it's just been like a brainchild of mine that I've been wanting to do. And yeah, we're finally doing it. So it's I think that's coming out later this year.
When you look at other brands that are in the industry, do you ever draw inspiration from them, or do you ever like see stuff that someone else is doing? You're like, oh, dang, that's a good idea, man. Like, I wish we would have came up with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So that's kind of so. How do I put this? Um, so there was a time, especially when we first started out building the brand, there was definitely a time that I would lose sleep over what the competition is doing, right? Like this brand, that brand, whoever it is, they're collaborating with these people, they're building up this product, they kind of beat us to the beat, making something cool or whatever it is. Or sometimes, and this has happened quite a few times, which is a little bit suspicious, but it just happens. Sometimes we come up with the product simultaneously or a week apart from each other, like a similar colorway, and I think that's kind of like the zeitgeist like thing, like this is what multiple people are thinking of it. Um, but at this point of where we're at with our brand, I'm extremely proud of Hyperfly, of how far we've taken it as a family, with our great employees. We have a great staff that, and I'm telling you, staff is not easy nowadays to get people to come on board to work, right? Like I always think that um, either you do your own thing or you work for somebody or for a brand and treat it like it's your own. Because if you're not going to do your own, then you might as well find something that you love that you can treat like it's your own, right? Because you're going to be working for them anyways. You're going to be spending your time, you're investing your time, you're there, so might as well love it. And we have a really great team from customer service to the warehouse to the design staff to social media. Like everybody, we're a great team here, and I'm just extremely proud of us, and where we've taken it. And so I don't really lose sleep over other brands anymore. If anything, it excites me. It motivates me in like the best possible way, not as in like I'm going to destroy them and I'm gonna one up them. It motivates me in a way that I think is great. That like it's taking our sport to it's making jiu-jitsu look good every single time a brand is doing something in a professional way, whether it is product or collaboration or whatever it is. If I like it and it looks good, it kind of makes me happy. I'm like, hell yeah, like this is for the better for the sport, this is for all of us, because we're all in this together. It's still such a small sport, right? And everything that people do, it makes noise, it makes ripples, like it changes the entire like I don't know, that not the mood, but like it has an
Mm-hmm.
impact, and we're all in this together. And it motivates me. I love other brands doing cool stuff. Like I'm not going to name any brands, but there's a couple brands that have sprung up recently, especially in the Nogi game. And I've talked to some of those guys, and I think they're doing great. I think they're doing really cool stuff. It's exciting. It's shaking the tree. It's making everybody kind of like some of these brands that have been around a little longer, kind of like, oh shit, like we got to keep up with that stuff now, like didn't think of that. um, I think it's great. I think that there's so many creative individuals in the sport, and that again, like I was talking about this earlier, like there's so many like incredible like star athletes that are coming into the sport. There's a lot of creative
Yeah.
people coming into the sport as well, and like jiu-jitsu has always had like a lot of creativity in it, but you're seeing people starting brands or working with other brands and doing some really cool shit, doing some like really, really exciting things. And overall, I think it's great for everybody.
Yeah, competition breeds innovation, right? So it's like
It does,
If
yes.
it's the same thing with why, Keenan Cornelius came up with like Worm Guard and how everyone had to adapt to that, or people coming out with new design ideas or new guards or all these things. Is like, if competition breeds innovation, you should embrace competition. You shouldn't want to be the only person. Growing up, my parent, when I was in the Navy, or maybe right before I joined the Navy, I heard this saying that really stuck with me. It's like, if you were the smartest person in the room, you need to find a new room. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
because otherwise you're just going to be
yeah,
stagnant. If you're always on top, then it's easier for people to come up from behind, and you're like, oh crap, I didn't even think about that. If you're not paying attention to those around you. So it's something that, as a podcaster, I've definitely tried to pay attention to also. Is like, what are my peers doing? How are they innovating their podcast to be different? What are they doing to bring people in and storytell and do these things to make their brand bigger, make their brand podcast or their podcast bigger? And so I've been doing that too, and I won't name any either. No, but there are some out there that I've talked
yeah.
to
Of
where I'm like,
course.
dude, you've inspired me to ask better questions. You've inspired me to up my business side of it. You've inspired me to up my production and all that stuff. And if I were to sit there
Yeah,
and not pay attention to what others are doing, then I would still be the same podcast that I was 5 years ago, and I wouldn't be able to talk to such incredible people because I wouldn't even go outside of what I thought was the right thing to do. So if you guys are out there and you're creative, don't feel like your way is the only way. Like, pay attention to what other people are doing. Success leaves clues, and if someone else is doing something that's successful, then hey, maybe piggyback on it. I've read a book
yeah,
called Real Artist Steal Like an Artist, and it talks about draw inspiration from others, like, and give credit where credit's due. There's nothing wrong with that.
exactly.
It's like, you don't have to figure everything out on your own. It gets really hard if you do that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's certainly study your surroundings, study your competitors, study, and that goes for any, like, whether you're a competitor on the mat or you're running a competitive brand. I think it's good to have a healthy take on the industry and know what's going on without trying to copy
Yeah.
each other, right? Like, inspiration happens, right? And there's nothing you can do about that. Once you get a seed planted in your head, you most likely have to do it, but just make sure it's not the
Yeah.
same, right? Like, don't copy and steal, but get inspired. Like, maybe the inspiration is to just be better, right? Maybe the inspiration is to dig deeper. Maybe it is to try something new, right? Something that goes against the grain of what you've been doing. And it's those little things that I think, if you try to focus on your little bubble too much, you're going to miss a whole lot of things that are going on around you. And I think that it's needed for you to grow as an individual, for you to grow as a brand. And that's like the whole other reason why I'm such a, you know, I think everybody needs to travel. I think everybody needs to get out in the world. I think everybody needs to leave their comfort zone. I think everybody needs to try something new, try something uncomfortable. Because at the end of the day, it's what is going to broaden your mind and is going to make you better. Even if the goal is not necessarily like, I need to be better than what I was yesterday, and yada yada yada. But you, from nothing comes nothing. That's what it is, and open yourself up to new ideas, and open yourself up to look around and see what's happening. Because I I was watching the Oscars the other day, and it was when Christopher Nolan got his, and he mentioned that movies have only been around for about 100 years, but art has been around for much, much longer than that. And it's interesting to see where movies are going to go in the next few years, because it's like art has been around for so long, and there's so many different techniques and approaches. And like the first movie in color was Wizard of Oz, right? And like Dorothy steps out of her house and everything goes into color. And I was just imagining, like, could you imagine being that person in the theater? This is before like trailers were going
Yeah.
around. Like, it was
Yeah.
just
No
word of mouth.
idea.
Like, you got to see this, man. It's crazy. And you see those red heels clicking and tapping. Like, we I think we're in such an interesting time with like how people are connected nowadays, and how much we're consuming on a day-to-day basis, that if you open yourself up to change, and if you open yourself up to being inspired and inspiration, and drawing you know, inspiration from unlikely places, you might be surprised of what you can learn. And I don't know. I think jiu-jitsu is so exciting, and it's such an interesting sport, and we're haven't even reached the pinnacle of what is possible, right? And like competitive jiu-jitsu has been around for what's like some like the 90s, Brazil, and then the US, and yada yada. And it's like we're only what 30 years into this game building out, and only the last 10 years have been, each year has been different. We're so early in on the sport for athletes and brands. I'm excited to see where it goes in the next 20 years. I'm excited to see what happens. I'm excited to see new rule changes. I'm excited to see new athletes, new brands, new products. Who knows where it's going to go? Like, you look at running and the innovation they've done in that sport, from the shoes, and everything. Like, I don't know where it's all going to head, but we're here for it, and we're excited about it, because it does feel like each year is getting better and better. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll talk next year again, and massive bombshells. Who knows? Like,
right.
Who knows where this is all going to go?
Well, hey, Laurenz, man, thank you so much for coming on to the show today, dude. Like, we've been talking for over an hour already. Time flew by. My camera's about to die, and my kids are yelling downstairs, so I think it's my cue to wrap it up. But hey, if there's anything else, what's coming up for you? What's coming up for Hyperfly that you want to kind of throw out there? And then, yeah, we'll kind of end it on that.
Yeah. Tokidoki is a brand we recently started working with, which they're a brand out of Italy, or the designer is from Italy, and he's doing some really exciting stuff. He's worked with some massive brands around the world, and we have a relationship that we've been building with them over the last year or so, and we're just getting started, and we're doing a lot of exciting products, from gis to boxing bags to gloves and all kinds of stuff. Dropping some Naruto gloves pretty soon. And yeah, I don't know. That's about it of what I can share. I mean, obviously the big bombshell is the one I can't talk about. But hopefully we can announce it soon. And I'm just hoping to compete a lot more this year, more than I did last year, train more than I did last year. And yeah.
Sounds good.
That's about it.
If people want to follow you, in case they didn't catch it last time, where's the best place to catch you at?
Follow Hyperfly, and then follow Hyperfly Laurenz. Those are the two.
And then you guys are putting more content out. You got a YouTube channel now that the stuff's going to be coming out?
Yeah. We're looking into maybe doing a vlog. We've been kind of filming stuff for the last 2 weeks. Kind of going to chop it up, and maybe just, it won't be a day-to-day vlog, and maybe it'll be like, this is what's been happening over here at Hyperfly for the last 2 weeks or so. Yeah, a lot more content, a lot more videos. Flying up to Portland next week to shoot some content up there.
My neck of the woods.
And yeah, it's
you. No, I'm like 3 hours north of Portland.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, it'll be a short trip. But yeah, we have as in terms of Hyperfly, we're trying to do better gear, but also more content and more relatable content. And I hope that this new approach that we're kind of going down, that new path that we're going down, I hope it works, because I think it's really exciting, and we have a lot of really exciting ideas that we want to put out. And I hope it's well received.
Heck yeah, man. Well, I'm excited for you guys. I'm excited that you got to come back on the show and we got to chat again, man. Life's been crazy, so I appreciate you taking the time. And if you guys want to go follow Hyperfly and Laurenz, everything's going to be linked down below. And thank you guys so much for listening and watching at home. And remember, no oil checks here. Peace.